Hey, welcome back to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. So, hey, my guest today is Hara Allison. She's a photographer, she's a graphic designer, a podcaster. Most of all, she is an overcomer. So, she's been through a lot in her life, and she's used these experiences to help others find the hidden beauty that we all have inside of her. So, Hara, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this one because you have a very interesting story, and I think you're really going to help some people today. So, let's just get into it. So tell people kind of the situation you had growing up. So, kind of what were you facing growing up?
Oh, well, I was the youngest of six kids and kind of invisible. People say, "Oh, were you spoiled?" And whatever the opposite of that was. I was very invisible. And I was touched inappropriately when I was very young. I was 7. And that kind of was overlooked in my household. My mother, I don't know if she didn't believe me, but she definitely didn't do anything about it. So that kind of set me on a course of not really trusting myself, I guess, or, feeling inadequate, not knowing my self worth. It took me till my mid 40s really to discover that I was um, valuable beyond what I could offer via my body.
Right.
And so that is my goal for women now, is to not wait so long. When young women in their 20s and stuff know that earlier, I'm so happy for them that they don't have to wait until their 40s. But so that's my goal in life, really, is to help women and anybody just see their beauty beyond what they look like.
Oh,
And everybody has a story. I feel very strongly that everybody has a story, and that maybe I can learn from everybody.
yeah, absolutely. My dad always said, that everybody you know knows something you don't, so you can always learn from
Absolutely.
everybody else, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, so that kind of shaped your life, and then how did you get into photography? So eventually, you get into photography. You in your teens? Is that how you got into it?
Yeah. Well, I have this a picture from when I was pretty young. I was eight maybe, and my father and I was with my grandmother, and my father took a picture of me and my grandmother, and I took a picture of him and my grandmother. And mine is so much more well composed. He had like all the dirt below us, and I had the mountain behind him. So I just always had an eye for it. And in high school, I got my own darkroom, and I always had a camera with me. I was the person always taking photos. And then I did go to college and I got a degree in communications, and I was majored in advertising. And even right after I got my degree, I still wanted to go into photography. I went to a studio in Miami and was going to work there, even though I had just gotten a degree. But I just felt overwhelmed with that. I wouldn't understand lighting, that it was too technical for me. And then during COVID, well, and then so I just came back to photography like 2019
Okay.
professionally. But and then during COVID, which was just right after that, I did a self portrait series, because what else was I going to do? I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
And so I did 60 days of self portraits, but I totally learned lighting because I was the model and I was so patient. And so um yeah, it wasn't I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. That's awesome. And it's not as hard as I thought it was. And I love photography. I love um showing people how beautiful they are when they don't see it. A lot of the women I photograph are heavier and maybe insecure, and it's beautiful revealing to them what they don't see.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
something you did was the See Me series, which is something awesome. If you guys haven't checked it out, you got to go follow her. I'm gonna link her or all of her stuff in show notes. But tell us a little about the See Me thing you did.
Okay, my daughter at the time was maybe 24, 25, and she follows all these body positivity people on Instagram. And anyway, one of the things she had seen was people holding up signs, saying they're more than their diagnosis. And she wanted to have me photograph paint on her. We went in the garage and found a paint and paintbrushes, and I painted on her all the words she would use to describe herself, and not what she looked like. You know, peacemaker, and um, I don't know, all these words of empowerment that
Hmm.
she wanted to describe herself. And I did that photo series. I did a photo of her and then asked on Facebook if anybody wanted to be in that series. And then I had like 30 women And it was really emotional, them coming up with the words, owning the words, feeling like they are powerful women, beautiful. And it was a really vulnerable situation. They'd come in, half the women I didn't ever meet before, they'd come in and I'd be like, okay, get undressed and let me paint on your back the words that they have very carefully chosen for themselves, and then photograph them half naked. And so it was a really beautiful experience. And I found that through all the photo shoots I do, that people will end up telling me their hearts and their hardships and the adversity they have faced. And that's actually how my podcast was born, was that I found that people open up to me and talk to me easily. And so the podcast is See Beneath Your Beautiful, and it's just sort of an extension of the photography. I feel like is that I see you, I hear you, and tell me your story and what can I learn from you.
That's amazing. Yeah. So what was kind of the stuff that people got out of it? The women that participated, I'm sure they told you all about what they felt, and what were some common themes you saw out of that?
Um, I looked up the things people wrote to me, and I have one little thing. I think this one sums it up if I could read this to you.
Sure. Yeah.
It says, I believe words have power. They have the ability to build someone up or tear them down. Every time I look at my picture, I can't help but feel these words slowly seep into my skin and imprint a picture on my soul. Now, as I venture out into the world, I feel like I have this newfound confidence as I present my most authentic self. And that was a real common theme, is that I've been hiding and choosing these words, which, I mean, they didn't choose them lightly. These are words that are painted on their back. They are like imprinted on them. And so it was really emotional and vulnerable and empowering for everybody.
Wow. Was there a process that came up with the words that you just said, "Hey, come up with this amount of words," or how does that happen?
It was really interesting. A lot of people, which they would come up with a list and then ask family and friends if they agreed with them, which was interesting. And then I remember one lady came in and she had so much trouble. We probably spent an hour talking about her list of words, because she was like, well, she wrote things like beautiful, but then she was intimidated to say it, to put it on her back. And it really took a long time for her to go, I can own these things. It's so interesting how, especially as women, we are not told to say that we're powerful and beautiful and resilient and overcomer. And so the fact that they would own these words was really empowering, because it's not something we do.
Right.
Claim all the things that are great about us.
Yeah. And why don't we buy it? Why don't we do more of that? That's a good
Yeah,
question, right?
that is a good question. I think it comes off as cocky instead of confident. you know um I just interviewed somebody who was extremely confident, and it was shocking. Like, I believe that he believed everything he was saying about himself, but it was overwhelming, the confidence. Like, I think there's some weird middle ground, that there's that's the cocky and then the confidence, but as women especially, we are made to feel less than. I mean, maybe it's men also, but I know that our we're really it's really our bodies that people judge first. And it was really important and powerful for women to say, these are all the qualities I have, and my body is just the shell.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can really own those words, and if you're going to put them on your body, you're going to own those words, right? So
It
that's an
made a big
amazing series.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the women came in, I didn't even know half of them. And I'm just like, paint. And that took a while too, because I was hand painting every word. And so it was a really interesting process. I'm really glad we did that. Project.
So these women that came in, was there a common theme about, were they moms? Were they divorced? Were they single? Did you see any kind of common grounds on people that were interested in this project, or was it across the board?
No. And that's what's fascinating, everything, young women to older women, heavy and skinny. Um, I did a series after that called Real Men. And that was fascinating too. The people who reached out to me, because I just stick this out there and I don't reach out to anybody. But the people who reached out to me, one was a man a transgender man who transitioned at 30. Another was a man who's never taken a free step. He was born and as a quadriplegic. Another is a proud gay man. So I just love who is called to these projects, and it's fascinating to me, just I don't know, who's willing to be vulnerable and say,
Sure.
this is who I am.
Yeah, that's a huge step right there. So
Mhm.
you said this spawned your podcast, and you've got some great interviews out there. So kind
Thanks.
of tell me maybe like 2 or 3 examples of some of your favorite or maybe just most intriguing interviews you've had over the years.
Okay. Just March will be my 1 year
Oh,
anniversary
one
of
year.
the
Okay. The
podcast.
the
Yeah,
year. No S.
the
Okay.
year. Yeah, the year. And my favorite episode was I lost my mother when I was 18, and so that has been a lifelong challenge for me to be motherless. And I interviewed 12 women. Again, I just put it out there who wants to be. And so, like, it's just interesting who chooses to share their stories. And same thing with the photography. But 12 women who have lost their mothers, from one woman, in childhood, very like 4 years old, I think. Another woman just recently, the mother was 90. And just, I kind of, just little clips of each of their stories. It was the most beautiful episode I think I've done. I love people who are willing to be emotional and vulnerable, whether again it's photography or story or words. That was a really beautiful episode. And then another one I just did with a woman who lost her 33-year-old son. He did a pill that happened to be laced with enough fentanyl to kill 6 people.
Oh
And
my
that was a
God.
really tragic conversation, but also she's finding peace. And so the goal is always that we can go through adversity and we can choose positivity. And so that is, I just think, a theme that runs out throughout my life. I don't want to live as a victim of anything that's ever happened to me. I think taking responsibility for all of your choices leads you to the freedom of, a peace, an inner peace.
Yeah, and absolutely. Human suffering is actually a choice, right? Animals
Yeah.
don't suffer emotionally and all that stuff. So it's
Right.
kind of a
Right. Oh,
choice.
that's right. That's right. It's the belief, it's believing our thoughts that is the suffering.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're doing all these stuff, podcasting and graphic design and photography. What's next for you? What are you looking at next?
Oh, well, anything artsy.
Yeah,
I'm going to say I'm all right-sided. There's no left to me. It's really hard to do my bookkeeping.
I bet. Yeah,
um, let's see. Oh, I just think maybe, evolving the podcast. Every episode, I don't know how you do yours, but every episode I take like 6 hours to edit 1 hour of content because I just care. It's an art project for me. I just want it to sound like a produced show. It's just like when I edit the photos, every little bit of that photo is touched and edited and carefully maneuvered, or, whatever. So everything's an art project. Everything's play for me. I just want to create and make something beautiful.
I do mine like that, except the exact opposite of that.
You don't do that.
I don't do any of that. No, I do
That's
just,
good though.
yeah, I would just, these are what they call au naturel
You're,
podcast. You put
you're
these,
well, you're smarter than me because mine takes forever. But also, then I'm sitting there when I don't have anything to edit. I'm like, what do I even do with myself? So it's just like, somebody who would knit to take some time up. I'm just doing editing.
that's it. Yeah, that's awesome. You have those skills. I would just mess it up. So that's why I don't do
Oh
it.
yeah,
But
yeah. Well,
so
I didn't know. I had never edited audio before I started a podcast, and this is how I do everything. I started a podcast. I had been interviewed by a couple people, and I thought I could do that. And 8 days later, I did my first episode.
hey,
I had all the equipment. I taught myself Audition and learned how to edit, and there you go. So I'm a kind of a by the seat of my pants kind of
Hey,
girl.
I'm with you on that. I'm ready, shoot, aim. I'm right with you. I'll put it out there and fix it, figure it out eventually. All right. So
Exactly.
I
Yes.
started my podcast, didn't even have the equipment. I was just out here, and someone had to send me the headset. They're like, "You're echoing way too much." Shout out to David
Yeah.
Marmon. But
Well, no, same thing. When I first started, the first episodes are pretty bad. I was in my photo studio. Nothing was soft or it was terrible. So there are a lot of echoey. I have a lot of first ones that are echoey.
that's
We
all
all
right.
start somewhere,
Got to
right?
start somewhere. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. So let's say there's someone out there, they're going through a hard time. Maybe it's the things that you've gone through with in your childhood and losing your mom and all that. What's your first step to being an overcomer? How would you look at that?
I think the biggest lesson I learned was to take responsibility and not be a victim of anything. And so I would say losing my mom did define my life in a lot of ways, but not letting it, let me think about the words. Deciding that that's a lesson in my life instead of that's what happened to me. So, and it's gotten me where I'm at. I wouldn't be the person who I am without that. So, those kind of things, just looking at everything differently, I think,
Yeah,
instead of being a victim and saying, this is what happened to me. And this is, I have the choice of how to react to everything.
that's it.
And I think that's the key.
I mean, if you look back on your life, the most horrible things that have happened to you are what put things in motion to where you are right now. All the things that you love and treasure in your life right now were set up with those horrible things that happened in the past, and mine as well. Anything you think about that you've gone through has gotten you where you here are today with all these things that you love, the photography and the podcast and all those things. Who knows where you'd be otherwise, right?
Exactly. And not only that, in addition to that, um, just lost my train of thought. But in addition to that, um, you don't edit. This is not good. Not only do you get where you're at, I don't even know what I was going to say. Forget it. Cut.
So tell us more about your photography and your graphic design business. Tell us a little more of what you look for and how people can work with you.
Okay. Well, I've been doing graphic design since I graduated college in 1989. That is a long time. I got my first job at an ad agency in Miami, Florida. So I've been doing that a long time. I have clients all over. I mean, I've done stuff and somebody did a project for somebody in Beijing before, but some of my big clients are the American Bar Association. I do a lot of their print projects, and I'm doing one right now actually for their conferences that they have. And I've done things for, a lot of medical stuff. I've done everything from business cards to brochures to billboards, everything you can think of, websites, done it all. And then the photography is kind of where my heart is because I love capturing people and a moment. I think that's because the pictures I have of me and my mother are few and so precious that I think just capturing moments, and I think every moment is a little, like, oh, when I take pictures of little kids, it's my favorite. Just they're so not um they're so secure. They're not in their head at all, and they're
Right.
just playing, and it's so fun. And I try to get adults to do that, is to just play and be themselves and just capture, who they are genuinely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what you do. Like you said, you bring the beauty out in people and it
Mhm.
shows in your photography skills. I
Oh,
mean, you can
thank
really
you.
tell people just they look like they're just shining when they're in your
Oh,
pictures.
thanks.
You do a great job with that. So
That's a
and
great
I'll link
compliment.
all your info and show notes and then come work with you and definitely go at least if nothing else, go check out that See Me series.
Oh,
Absolutely
thanks.
amazing. I know you changed their lives and people can look at it and say, hey, I own those words as well. So what you're doing is a great job. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, cool. And go follow your podcast as well. That one, it's emotional. You got to be mentally prepared to go into that one. Yeah. So
No,
go.
there's a lot of fun moments. I keep it light. There's both. And I think that's the whole thing, is that no matter what we've gone through, is that there's lightness at the end. And so those were emotional interviews with the women who've lost their mothers, but it was the most beautiful thing because we've all, oh, that's what I was going to say when I forgot what I was going to say, is that we all come out okay. Everybody, no matter what you've gone through, the hardest thing you've gone through, you're okay. That
Man,
is my thing. No matter what, I have survived everything, and you're going to. it's all going to be okay.
That's an
That's my
amazing.
that's my wish for everybody, is that they got it, because no matter how hard it is, it's just going to be okay in the end.
That's an amazing message because
Yeah.
once people can realize that, hey, I'm going to be okay. All you need is that little bit of hope, right? I got my Hope Dealer shirt on. So if you have a little bit of hope, that's all you need in life, right?
Awesome. Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for being an overcomer and sharing. Hey, you could have kept that all inside and not shared that with the world. You turned that around, helping other people that may have gone through something similar. And I appreciate that about you. So thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to following you in the future.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a
Same,
great
same.
day.
Okay. Bye.